Take your hand away from me. The words sliced through the grand ballroom so sharply that even the violinists stopped playing. Every face turned. At the center of the room stood a humble single father named Daniel Hayes, wearing a clean but old navy suit, his little daughter's handmade bracelet still tied around his wrist. In front of him stood the powerful CEO, Victoria Sterling, dressed in a silver designer gown, her chin raised, her smile cold, and her hand pulled back like Daniel had offered her something dirty. She did not know the truth. She did not know the man she had just humiliated owned 60% of her company. And by the end of that night, the entire room would be in tears. Before we begin, if you believe kindness is stronger than pride, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. This story is for every quiet person who was underestimated, ignored, or treated like they were nothing. Daniel Hayes had never cared much for expensive rooms, polished marble floors, or people who measured a person's worth by the price of their shoes. He cared about two things only: his daughter Lily and keeping the promise he had made to his late wife. Never become bitter, his wife had whispered before she passed away. No matter how cruel the world becomes, stay kind. Daniel had kept that promise for 6 years. He worked long hours as a mechanic in a small garage at the edge of town. His hands were rough, his shirts often stained with oil, and his back ached every night. But every morning, he packed Lily's lunch with a little note inside. "You are brave. You are loved. Daddy is proud of you." Lily was 8 years old, with bright eyes, soft curls, and a heart too gentle for the world. She never complained when Daniel came home tired. She would simply run to him, hug his knees, and say, "Daddy, did you fix the world today?" Daniel always smiled and answered, "Only a small part of it." But there was one part of his life Lily did not know. 3 years earlier, Daniel had quietly invested everything he inherited from his wife's family into Sterling Global, a struggling technology company on the edge of collapse. Everyone thought the company was finished. But Daniel had seen something in it. He had studied every report late at night after Lily fell asleep. He believed the company could be saved if someone patient and honest stood behind it. So he invested. Quietly. Through legal trusts. Through private agreements. Through years of silent support. And now, without ever stepping into the spotlight, Daniel Hayes owned 60% of Sterling Global. The company had survived because of him. The CEO, Victoria Sterling, never knew his face. She only knew there was a mysterious majority investor who had saved her empire. She imagined him as a billionaire in a private jet, a cold businessman in a penthouse, someone like the people she respected. Not a tired single father with oil under his fingernails. That evening, Sterling Global hosted its annual charity gala. Daniel had been invited by the board because, after years of silence, he had finally agreed to attend. Not for attention. Not for power. But because the gala was raising money for children who had lost a parent, and that cause touched the deepest wound in his heart. Lily helped him get ready. She stood on a chair, carefully fixing his tie with serious concentration. "You look handsome, Daddy," she said. Daniel laughed softly. "You think so?" "I know so." Then she tied a small blue bracelet around his wrist. It was made of thread and tiny plastic beads. "For courage," she said. Daniel looked down at it, emotion rising in his throat. "I'll wear it all night." When he arrived at the ballroom, he immediately felt out of place. Men wore custom tuxedos. Women wore diamonds that could pay for houses. Conversations floated around him about yachts, private schools, and vacation homes. Daniel kept to the side, holding a glass of water. Then he saw Victoria Sterling. She moved through the room like she owned every breath in it. Beautiful, powerful, admired, and distant. People stepped aside for her. Executives smiled too quickly. Reporters lifted cameras. She was the face of success. But Daniel saw something else. He saw a woman surrounded by people and still completely alone. A board member named Arthur Reed noticed Daniel and hurried toward him. "Mr. Hayes," he whispered warmly. "We are honored you came." Daniel nodded. "Please, just Daniel." Arthur smiled. "The board has waited a long time to meet you." Daniel looked toward Victoria. "Does she know?" Arthur hesitated. "Not yet. We plan to introduce you after her speech." Daniel simply nodded. Across the room, Victoria noticed Arthur speaking respectfully to a man she did not recognize. Her eyes narrowed. Daniel's suit was clean but clearly not expensive. His shoes were polished but old. His hands looked like working hands. She walked over with a practiced smile. "Arthur," she said, "who is our guest?" Arthur opened his mouth, but Victoria's assistant interrupted, whispering that the mayor had arrived. Victoria barely looked at Daniel. Daniel, still respectful, extended his hand. "Daniel Hayes," he said gently. "It's an honor to meet you." Victoria looked at his hand. Then at the bracelet on his wrist. Then at the faint roughness of his fingers. Her smile changed. "Take your hand away from me," she said quietly, but loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. The room chilled. Daniel slowly lowered his hand. Victoria gave a small laugh, as if saving herself from embarrassment. "I'm sorry," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "I thought security was supposed to keep the service staff in designated areas." A few people laughed. Arthur's face went pale. Daniel said nothing. Victoria continued, "This is a donor event, not a repair shop." More laughter spread. Cruel, nervous, polished laughter. Daniel looked down at the bracelet Lily had made him. For 1 second, pain crossed his face. Not anger. Pain. He remembered his wife's words. Never become bitter. So he looked back at Victoria and said softly, "You may be right. I fix broken things. Sometimes engines. Sometimes lives. Sometimes companies." Victoria's smile faded. She did not understand the weight of his words. Before Arthur could explain, Victoria was pulled away to begin her speech. Daniel remained standing alone. Some guests avoided his eyes. Others whispered. A woman near the champagne table said, "How embarrassing." A man chuckled, "He should know his place." Daniel heard every word. But he did not leave. Because leaving would mean the lesson ended too soon. Victoria stepped onto the stage beneath a crystal chandelier. Cameras flashed. The company logo glowed behind her. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "Sterling Global stands here tonight as a symbol of strength, vision, and leadership." The audience applauded. Daniel listened quietly. Victoria spoke about courage. About compassion. About helping children in need. She said all the perfect words in the perfect voice. But Daniel watched the waiters standing near the walls. He watched the young woman serving drinks with tired eyes. He watched the security guard shifting his weight after hours on his feet. He wondered why powerful people praised humanity on stage while ignoring it beside them. Then Arthur walked to the microphone after Victoria's speech. "Before tonight's donation announcement," Arthur said, his voice shaking slightly, "there is someone in this room we must acknowledge. Someone without whom Sterling Global would not exist today." Victoria smiled, expecting him to name a famous investor. Arthur continued, 3 years ago, when this company was days away from collapse, one person believed in us when no one else did. He invested quietly. He asked for no fame. No headlines. No office. No special treatment. Victoria's smile slowly weakened. Arthur turned toward Daniel. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our majority owner, Mr. Daniel Hayes." Silence. The kind of silence that exposes every guilty heart. Victoria stared at Daniel. The same man whose hand she had refused. The same man she had mistaken for staff. The same man she had mocked in front of everyone. Daniel did not smile. He did not look proud. He simply walked toward the stage with calm steps. Every footstep sounded louder than applause. As he passed the guests who had laughed at him, their faces dropped. The man who said Daniel should know his place lowered his eyes. The woman at the champagne table turned red with shame. Daniel stepped onto the stage. Arthur handed him the microphone. For a moment, Daniel looked across the ballroom. Then he looked at Victoria. She was frozen. Daniel began quietly. I was not planning to speak tonight. No one moved. I came here because this charity helps children who know what it feels like to lose someone they love. My daughter is one of those children. His voice softened. 6 years ago, my wife passed away. She left behind a little girl who still asks questions I cannot always answer. She also left me with one instruction. Stay kind. Several people lowered their heads. Daniel lifted his wrist slightly, showing the bracelet. My daughter made this for me tonight. She told me it was for courage. I thought I would need courage to stand among wealthy people. I was wrong. I needed courage to stand among people who forgot that every human being deserves respect. The room grew heavy. Victoria's eyes filled with shock and regret. Daniel continued, I have worked as a mechanic most of my life. These hands have fixed engines, changed tires, carried groceries, packed school lunches, wiped away my daughter's tears, and held my wife's hand as she took her last breath. His voice trembled, but did not break. So when I offered my hand tonight, I was not offering oil stains. I was offering respect. A woman in the audience began to cry. Daniel looked at the executives. I invested in this company because I believed it could become more than a machine for profit. I believed it could become a place where people mattered. But tonight, I saw something broken inside these walls. Victoria's lips parted, but no words came. Daniel turned toward her. Miss Sterling, you refused to shake my hand because you thought I was beneath you. Victoria's face crumbled. I am sorry, she whispered, but the microphone did not catch it. Daniel heard her anyway. He nodded slightly. I believe you are. Then came the twist no one expected. Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded paper. Tonight, I had planned to announce a donation of $5 million to this charity on behalf of Sterling Global. Gasps filled the room. But now I am changing it. Victoria closed her eyes, expecting punishment. Daniel continued, I am increasing it to 10 million. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Daniel raised his hand gently, asking for silence. But there is a condition. Everyone leaned forward. From this night on, Sterling Global will create a support fund for employees who are single parents, caregivers, widows, widowers, and families in crisis. Not as a marketing campaign. Not as a headline. As a permanent company promise. Arthur began to cry openly. Daniel looked at Victoria again. And every executive in this room will spend one full day each year working beside the lowest paid employees in this company. Not watching them. Working with them. Serving food. Answering phones. Cleaning floors. Listening. The shame in the room became almost unbearable. Daniel then stepped away from the microphone. But Victoria suddenly moved. She walked toward him slowly. Not like a CEO. Not like a queen of the room. Like a person who had finally seen herself clearly. She stopped in front of Daniel. Her voice shook. Mr. Hayes. Daniel waited. Victoria looked at his hand. Then, in front of everyone, she lowered her head. I was cruel to you because I judged what I saw instead of honoring who you were. I have spent years building a company, but somewhere along the way, I lost the part of myself that knew how to be human. Tears slipped down her face. I am sorry. Not because you own the company. Because you deserved respect before I knew that. Then she extended her hand. The entire room held its breath. Daniel looked at her hand. For a moment, he remembered the humiliation. The laughter. The pain. Then he remembered Lily. He remembered his wife. Stay kind. Daniel took Victoria's hand. The room broke into applause, but it was not loud at first. It began softly, like people were afraid to disturb the moment. Then it grew until the chandelier seemed to tremble. But the deepest moment came when Daniel's phone rang. He almost ignored it, then saw Lily's name. He answered, stepping slightly away from the microphone. Daddy? Lily said. Yes, sweetheart. Did the bracelet work? Daniel looked around the room. At the crying executives. At Victoria wiping her tears. At strangers who had finally remembered kindness. His voice cracked. Yes, Lily. It worked. Did you fix the world today? Daniel smiled through tears. Only a small part of it. The microphone caught his answer. And that was when the room truly fell apart. People cried not because Daniel was rich. Not because he owned 60% of a company. They cried because a man who had every right to be bitter chose mercy instead. The next morning, the video of the gala spread everywhere. But Daniel refused interviews. He did not want fame. He returned to his small garage, opened the door at sunrise, and fixed a neighbor's old truck like it was any other day. Victoria visited him 1 week later. This time, she wore simple clothes. No cameras. No assistant. No stage. Daniel was under the hood of a car when she arrived. I came to ask something, she said. Daniel wiped his hands with a cloth. Victoria looked nervous. Will you teach me how to repair what I broke? Daniel studied her for a moment. Then he handed her a pair of work gloves. We'll start with this engine, he said. Broken things need patience. Victoria smiled weakly. And people? Daniel looked toward Lily, who was drawing with chalk outside the garage. People needed even more. Months passed. Sterling Global changed. The Employee Support Fund helped hundreds of families. Single mothers received childcare assistance. Fathers caring for sick children got paid leave. Workers who had once felt invisible were invited into rooms where decisions were made. Victoria changed too. She stopped entering rooms like everyone owed her respect. She started earning it quietly. She visited departments without cameras. She learned names. She listened more than she spoke. And every year, on the anniversary of that gala, the company held a different kind of event. No chandeliers. No designer gowns. No cold speeches. Just employees and families sharing meals together. At the first gathering, Lily stood beside Daniel and looked up at Victoria. Are you Daddy's friend now? She asked. Victoria knelt to Lily's height. I hope so, she said softly. Your daddy taught me something important. What? Victoria looked at Daniel. That a person's hands can tell a story. And some of the strongest hands are the ones the world refuses to shake. Lily smiled and held out her tiny hand. Victoria shook it gently. Daniel watched, his heart full. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she asked, Daddy, why were people mean to you? Daniel sat beside her. Because sometimes people forget that worth is not in clothes, money, or titles. Where is it? Daniel touched her heart gently. Here. And in how we treat others. Lily thought about that. Then you're the richest person I know. Daniel laughed softly, but tears filled his eyes. No, sweetheart. I just had a very good teacher. Mommy? Daniel nodded. And you? The story of Daniel Hayes became a lesson whispered far beyond Sterling Global. A humble single father walked into a room where people judged him by his suit, his hands, and his silence. They thought he was nobody. But he never needed to prove he was somebody. His character did that for him. And that is the message of this story. Never confuse humility with weakness. Never judge a person by their clothes, their job, or their quietness. The hand you refuse to shake today may belong to the person who once saved you. And even if it does not, shake it anyway. Because respect should never depend on power. It should depend on humanity. If this story touched your heart, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to remember that kindness is still powerful. Sometimes the strongest people are not the ones standing above everyone. They are the ones who were humiliated in front of everyone. And still chose grace.